Well, hi, everyone. This is Carmen Vertullo with your Fastener Training Minute, coming to you from the Fastener Training Institute and AIM Testing Laboratory here in beautiful El Cajon, California. As is often the case, today's Fastener Training Minute topic comes from a question that I got from someone who was in one of our Fastener Training Institute classes. And this question comes up frequently, and sadly, there is no good answer to this question. However, I'm going to provide a partial answer and a solution going forward. And the question is this: when using jam nuts, now you all know what a jam nut is. It looks like a regular hex nut, except it's thinner, I should say, about half height. When using jam nuts, should the jam nut go on top of the full-size nut or underneath the full-size nut? Now, most common sense folks would think, well, you would put the jam nut on after. But in our world, when we look this up in a technical perspective, we find out that most of the folks who think they know what they're talking about say, put the jam nut on first and then the full height nut. And this sounds very confusing. And it is very confusing. And when we come back, I'll try to clear up the confusion and then ultimately propose a method by which we can have a final answer. Please come back for the rest of the Fastener Training Minute in just a minute.
Quality products, quality service, quality customers. That's 3Q Inc., a fastener distributor unlike any you've worked with before. With its unique remote managed inventory stocking programs, wide array of secondary service offerings, and wholly owned cold forming capability, 3Q Inc. has been supporting fastener distributors since 2008. 3Q offers a wide range of 100% American-made fasteners, including 100% made in USA domestic lock washers, clevis pins and bolts, special ITW screw products, Tap-R, Boss Screw, TL stud, and grip tied inserts, Sems lock washer products, split lock washers, tooth lock washers, and square cone, as well as specialty and imported parts. Give 3Q a call today to discuss your needs and experience 3Q quality for yourself. 3Q Inc. www.3q-inc.com.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Fastener Training Minute. Today's topic is jam nuts. Now, if you've ever looked up in any technical book or manual about the proper use of jam nuts, what you probably discovered is, oh my goodness, I've been doing it wrong all these years. The jam nut goes on first, and then the thick nut or the regular nut goes on top of it. Well, to me, there's a little bit of a problem with that. And here's some of the questions that we have to ask and answer to accept that strategy. The first question is, what should the torque of the jam nut be when we install it? Well, theoretically, it's a half height nut, so maybe it should be half of the torque of the full height nut. If we only torque it to half the torque of the full height nut, we're obviously not going to get the full tension on the bolt. So now we are going to put on the full height nut on top of that jam nut. And theoretically, we're going to torque it to its proper torque. And somehow magically, it's going to pull through that jam nut and add tension to the bolt. I don't think so. I don't think that would work. And should we hold the jam nut from turning while we tighten the full height nut, or let it grab the jam nut and turn it more? Those are questions that we have to answer. So once we have that all figured out, it's obvious that we still don't know how much tension we're putting on the bolt. So there are two answers to this. One answer is, first off, jam nuts are not the best solution for vibration-resistant fastening. They're very popular, but there are better solutions than that. We'll talk about those in another Fastener Training Minute. But if that's the solution that's been chosen, we then have to come up with the strategy for the installation, one of which I just described, which is the most common one. Here's the thing. It's probably not suitable for high-strength bolting or any bolting that is intended to be used in its full tension application. That all works fine if the bolt is in shear and we're not really concerned with tension. We're not going to fully tension the bolt anyway. So that might be the answer to the whole jam nut problem. The reason this also comes up for me is I just spent the middle of the night, literally 2 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the morning, on web meetings with the ISO Fastener Standards TC2 Committee, Subcommittee 12, on nuts, on which I sit. And these are the world's greatest experts. They're unbelievably smart people. And they're all in other parts of the world. And they all think that the jam nut should go on second. We really didn't solve the problem in that meeting, but we did identify it as something that needs to have some resolution. So here's what I propose, and it would be a relatively simple resolution. We have some test equipment here because we happen to be a fastener testing laboratory, and we can simply do some experiments. Let's find out what happens to the bolt tension when we put on our jam nut first and our full height nut on second. Let's do some vibration testing and find out whether it's more or less effective to put the jam nut on under the full height nut or on top of the full height nut. And I intend to do these experiments. And if anyone is interested in joining me in them, I would be happy to have some help. Maybe you can provide the product and we write the nice magazine article about what we find out. We'll give you some credit for that. Well, I know I didn't probably solve the problem that any of you may have with the use of jam nuts, but at least we now know what the problem is and it's been well defined, and we're on our way to a solution that we will be describing in a future Fastener Training Minute. This has been Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute. Thank you for listening.